I have done a number of short videos on Hammurabi's epilogue and also a few lines of Enuma Elish, looking at the Akkadian grammar inductively. What I'd like to do is do a similar kind of study of a few lines looking at the Akkadian grammar in the Descent of Ishtar into the Underworld, another famous myth of ancient Babylon. It is interesting as we think about this that there are some, I think, biblical parallels that are rather interesting as well. A little bit about my background. I did my doctorate of theology from Dallas Seminary in biblical studies, and my PhD, well, my master's of arts and PhD from the Dropsy College, and PhD in Hebrew and ancient languages from New York University. Basically, as I do this, I'm retired. I'm a retired seminary professor, and I had focused not on Akkadian, to be honest, but on Hebrew. And there's a number of Hebrew, inductive Hebrew grammars out on my channel, and also Greek, inductive Greek grammars, New Testament. My basic study has been in biblical languages, especially Hebrew and Greek. When I worked on my PhD back in the 80s, I had 3 years of Akkadian, and I have not really done a lot of work in it since then, so I don't claim to be an expert in Akkadian grammar. But I want to keep my mind alive at this point in life, and so it's been somewhat enjoyable for me to continue trying to work with some mental effort in the inductive grammar of Akkadian, just to keep my thinking alive in what I learned many years ago. So if anyone listens to this that is an expert in Akkadian, I would welcome any corrections. I don't claim to be the ultimate authority in Akkadian grammar, but I want to put up just my own thinking as I seek to review what I learned a number of years ago. Like I said, my main emphasis is in Hebrew, inductive Hebrew grammar, and Greek grammar, and also in biblical interpretation. So we begin with looking at the Descent of Ishtar, and I'm going to do the first 11 lines of that, or make an effort to work through that. I would recommend a manual of Akkadian by David Marcus. I have appreciated his work quite a bit, and he did a study of the Descent of Ishtar in his book, and it's been very helpful to me. The other thing, I think if anyone's listening to this, there are a number of sites, I believe, on the internet where you can find a transliteration of the Descent of Ishtar. And I'll be working from transliteration. I have worked through cuneiform in the past, but I'll be working through transliteration, looking at the grammar. And so with that in mind, just a little word about the Descent of Ishtar. She goes down to the underworld and meets her sister Ereshkigal. And she goes through, it looks like, a number of layers of the underworld, and she's stripped of different things, different clothing, different jewelry. But then Ea persuades Ereshkigal to let her go back. And so she goes back up, so to speak, the different stages or levels of the underworld. I believe it was 7. And she then comes out fully clothed as she went in. So it's a very interesting myth, and there are many ideas as to what the purpose was. It could have been about fertility, since she is the goddess of fertility. But at any rate, let me go through. There's been many interpretive thoughts. What I'd like to do is do more of an inductive Hebrew grammar, Akkadian grammar, looking at each word. It is interesting that our Borger, Babylonisch Assyrische Leserstück, Volume 1, has been a help to me in terms of looking at his transliteration. And so what I'd like to do is read the transliteration that I have, along with then word by word grammatical, in an inductive way, a grammatical study. So we begin with line 1. Ana kurnugu kakari la tari. Notice Ana kurnugi. Maybe I'll just read through some of the different lines and then go back and look at each word. Ana kurnugi kakari la tari. Ishtar marat sin uz zunsha lishkun. Or ishkun, excuse me. Ishkun ma marat sin zu insha. Anabiti eti shubat irkala. Anabit sha eribushu la atsu. So we would translate that to the underworld or the netherworld, to the land of no return, or the territory of no return. Ishtar, the daughter of sin, set her ears, and we'll talk about that. Literally set her mind, literally set her ears. But if we wanted to understand the idea, she set her mind to what she was going to do. And let's just read or work on those first 2 lines. Ana kurnugi kakari latari. To the netherworld, to the land or territory of no return. Ana is the preposition, and kurnugi is the genitive. Notice following ana in Akkadian with the I vowel, that is to the netherworld. Kurnugi means the underworld or the netherworld, to the land or the territory of no return. Kakari is the from the noun kakaru, meaning territory. And notice again, it's the genitive going back to ana. La is your negative particle, and tari I'm understanding as a G participle masculine singular, from taru, to return. So to the netherworld, to the land of no returning. And then in line 2, Ishtar marat sin uzun shah ishkun. That is Ishtar, and notice marat is the Akkadian word for daughter. So Ishtar, the daughter of Sin. Sin is the moon god. It is interesting that in Akkadian you have 3 signs signifying, that is the cuneiform, signifying 30, looking at the days of the month. And here it is rendered sin. So the daughter of sin, the moon god, Uzun Shah Ishkun, directed or placed her ear, literally. Notice Uznu is the noun meaning ear, and Ishkun is the G preterite, a third masculine singular from Shakanu. So she set her ear, which means she gave attention, sort of like when your parents used to say to me, Gary, did you hear me? Did you give attention to what I've said? And so she set her ear. And then verse 3, Ishkunma marat sin uzunsha. That is a repeat again, a repetition in poetry here. The daughter of sin set her ear. Same grammar. It is interesting that in the Hebrew Bible, we often in poetry have repetition, which is characteristic of Hebrew poetry as well. And I'll be doing some comparison with biblical sources as well. So then in line 4, notice it reads, Anabiti et te shubat irkala. That is, to the house, the gloomy house, the dwelling of Erkala. Notice Ana takes the genitive, and bitum is the Akkadian word for house. One of the differences that is pointed out in the wonderful Akkadian, inductive Akkadian work in Marcus is that he is a tremendous help, to me anyway. And he makes this statement that what we have here is standard Babylonian. In Hammurabi's epilogue, we had the old code of Hammurabi, for example, is the old Babylonian. Here we have the standard. And even though it's written in the same script, Neo-Assyrian script, there are some differences. And one of the differences is mimation. That is the final mem or m, and it is dropped out here. So what we end up with, and by the way, that information came to me on page 64 of a manual of Akkadian by David Marcus. Just to read his account, although written in the same script, Neo-Assyrian, I said Old Babylonian, Neo-Assyrian, in which the Old Babylonian is the Old Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, was presented. The text with which we are now dealing, Descent of Ishtar, were composed in the literary language standard Babylonian. So there's some differentiation. And one is that the M, the mem, is basically dropped out. So instead of anabitim, it's anabiti. To the house, and ette means gloomy. And again, notice biti is your genitive singular from bitum, meaning house, and ette is your adjective, meaning gloomy. So to the gloomy house, Shubat Irkala, the dwelling place of the nether world. Shubat is from Shubtu, meaning dwelling. And notice it's in construct with Erkala, to the dwelling place. And Erkala, when we're looking at the Sumerian, we have the dinger sign followed by E-R-I, capital E-R-I dash capital G-A-L, a name for the underworld. And so, to the house, to the gloomy house, to the dwelling place of the netherworld, the underworld. Line 5 then, we have a statement about that netherworld. Anabiti sha eribushu la atsu. To the house where they who enter, they do not go out. Notice anabiti again. Ana is taking the genitive in biti, and sha, your relative pronoun. This is followed by eribusha la atsu. They who enter. And eribushu is a G participle, masculine plural, from eribu, to enter. And la is your negative particle, and atsu is from the root watsu. And notice the W has dropped out in standard Akkadian. And it means, again, it's a G participle, masculine third plural, masculine plural, or masculine plural, from watsu, to go out. So to the house where the one who enters it, they who enter it, they do not go out. And erebu means to enter, and watsu means to go out. Then in line 6, notice it reads, Ana harani sha alaktasha la tayarat. To the road whose journey has no return, or whose path has no return. Notice Ana harani, Ana again continues to take the genitive in harani. Harani is from the noun haranu in Akkadian, meaning road. And sha is your relative pronoun, and alaktasha. Alaktasha is from the noun alaktu, meaning way or path. And so to the road whose its way. And notice the repetition of sha, meaning a third feminine singular pronominal suffix, its way, la tarat, does not turn back. And here we have the root taru to mean to turn back. And notice we're looking, I believe, at a G stative whose way or path does not turn back, from taru. And then line 7 reads, Anabiti sha ashibushu zumu nura. That is, to the house where they who enter are bereft or do not have light. They who enter are bereft of light. Notice ashar, or excuse me, anabitu, ana takes the genitive case again, and we have bitu from bitum, genitive singular, whose relative pronoun, erebushu, they who enter. Here we have another participle, a masculine plural, followed by shu, they who enter it, the pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So they who enter it is, or they are, deprived. Zumu, meaning deprived of light. And notice nu ra, they who enter it, light is deprived. They have no light. And This has an A ending. They are deprived of light. I'm understanding it as genitival in the context here. In other words, to the house where they who enter it are deprived of light. And then, as we move on to line 8, Ashar epru bubusunu akaushunu titi. That is, where dust, or the place where dust is their sustenance, and their food is clay, or their food clay. Notice ashar is the conjunction where it's, if we look it up, it's from ashru, meaning place, but here it is serving as a conjunction, I believe, where epru means dust, where dust, bubu sunu, is their sustenance. And notice bubu sunu is from the noun bubutu, meaning sustenance, and sunu is your third masculine plural pronominal suffix. So where dust is their sustenance and their food, notice alkal shunuti. Alkalum is the noun food, and alkal is in construct with shunuti, that is their food, another pronominal suffix, third plural. Their food is titu, their food is clay. So the place where there's really not much food, their food is clay, is what the text is saying. And they're not only bereft of light, but dust is their sustenance, and clay is their food. Then, as we go on in line 9, notice Nura ul imaru ena eluti ashbu. Or ashbu. Notice they do not see light, and in darkness they dwell. Nura is the object of imaru. Light they do not see, or they do not see light. I'm understanding nura here from nuru, an accusative singular, and then we have imaru from amaru, they do not see light. And I'm understanding this as a G stative, active stative. They do not see light, and in darkness, inna etuti, notice inna takes the genitive case, and ashbu, in darkness they dwell. Again, ashbu from washabu, meaning to dwell, which I'm understanding, or we could also translate as sit, and stative, again, active stative from washabu, to sit. Parallel in Hebrew to yashab, to sit or to dwell. So basically, they do not see any light, and they sit in darkness. And then, line 10, labshunu, labshuma kima itsuri shubat gapi, or we could render this kapi. That is, labshuma, their clothing, as itsuru, as a bird, and shubat, kapi, their covering is of wings. So it's very limited covering, it looks like. So their clothing is as a bird. It's suru. It's not much. And the dwelling or the covering of wings. Shubat from shubtu, meaning dwelling or covering, and then of wings is kapi. Again, a noun in construct with the genitive kapi from kapu, meaning of wings. And I would take this as a plural, genitive plural from kapu. Then in line 11, it reads, Eli dauti u sikuri shabuch epru. And notice where over the door and the bolt is spread dust. Eli takes the genitive in dauti, a preposition. So over the door from dautu, meaning door, and a bolt is spread dust. Sikara means bolt, and then shapu is a G stative, is spread, masculine singular. Ipru is spread dust, or over the door and bolt, dust is spread. And I would see ipru as the nominative here, and shapu again as a stative, a masculine singular. So this is the picture of Ishtar going into the underworld. And I'd like to say, as a Christian minister, when I read the Hebrew Bible and I think about Isaiah 14, we have a statement about the king of Babylon or Assyria going into the underworld. And there's much, I'm going to say, parallel, or at least I would say allusion to the descent of Ishtar in that text, where it describes the king of Babylon or Assyria going into the underworld. And even though he felt he was such a great king, his destiny was to go into that world of darkness. It's also interesting to me, the New Testament will speak of eternity without a relationship to Christ as outer darkness. Jesus uses that terminology, which is striking when I see the parallel looking at the final, if one is finally separated from Christ and God, as in the teaching of the Gospels. It's also interesting to me as I look at this text that this is called the land where no one returns, to the nether world. And as we saw in the first part of this, those who enter it, they do not go out. And I can only say, as a Christian minister, I am sure glad for me personally that I have my faith rooted in Jesus Christ, who I believe has conquered death and has come out on the other side, the only one who has ever done that. And so for me, it has wonderful meaning to realize that even though everyone is mortal, and the older I get, the realization of that, it's wonderful for me to know that Jesus Christ is the Akkadian, the perfect pathfinder who has cut the way through the thicket of death. And through faith in him, we can have the assurance that it is not a land of no return, but one, as Jesus said to the thief on the cross, today you shall be with me in paradise. And then the anticipation of all who sleep will be raised, as Jesus says, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt in John 5. And so there's that great promise of resurrection because we have one who is the resurrection and the life. And that's what Jesus said in John 11, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And so to me as a Christian pastor and minister, it's wonderful to know that Jesus has cut the way through the thicket of death, and it's not the land of no return for any who has their faith rooted in the resurrected Christ. I've enjoyed doing this. Thank you, and have a good day.